Welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Channel. I'm Adam J.D. Martin, your host, and today I'm standing here with Kyle Ford, who I haven't seen in a very long time, and we're here to talk to you about the 2025 market. We're standing in a big project, as you can see, that Kyle, you've got undergo right now. So what's going on in this project? What are we here to talk about today?
So this is a former 9-plex.
Okay.
We are doing a full building renovation, retrofit, bringing it up to today's standards and energy efficiency, more accessible. Some of these old buildings can't be fully accessible, and really bring it up to today's standards of amenities that people are looking for. Some of you may have seen me standing in this spot a while ago, and I'm still standing in the spot as we work through some of the challenges of getting approvals in today's market and getting these projects off the ground and ultimately as much needed housing.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this on the channel now over the last few videos. If you've been watching, we've been talking about additional dwelling units. We've been talking about rates changing. We've been talking about supply on the market. We've been talking about demand, right? And largely the theme, I think, for 2025 that we're going to continue talking about is you got to put in the work. These things just aren't coming to you anymore, and they really never should have. There never should have been an environment where you were able to buy the worst property on a decent neighborhood, sit on it for 3 months and make 70 grand. That's over, it's done with, it was wrong to begin with, and that inflationary environment really caused a lot of bad habits. So I wanted to meet today with Kyle Ford so that we could chat about what a real project looks like and some of the, the pitfalls of that, right? What are the pros, what are the cons, what are the problems, what are the profits, and how can we stand to gain as real estate investors, but also as a society, right? This is inventory that needs to be added. The government talks all the time about how we need more inventory, we need more housing, we need more affordable housing, but nobody's really talking about what it takes to get that. So I wanted to unpack how we got here on this building. So you've been working at this for a little while, having some challenges with the city or with permitting. So I'd love to just kind of unpack that a little bit, and then let's talk about some of the, cause and effect of once the work's actually done from an investor's perspective, why do it?
Yeah, so in terms of the permitting side, I always like to, the first thing I'm going to do is take responsibility myself. There's things that I could do better. Once you've done these projects, every project you do, you're going to recognize there's things that you could do better, more efficiently to go through these processes faster. You learn things. You catch your mistakes before somebody else does. So I ultimately take responsibility for any project I do on behalf of my investors first and foremost. But ultimately, the challenges that we're facing are so avoidable. And I also want to be cognizant, if people from the city see, there's a lot of great employees at the city. There's a lot of super knowledgeable people at the city. But ultimately, the overall process to do this takes way too long, too many checks, balances, departments, and studies, reports, to ultimately, like in this example, the exterior of this building isn't changing.
Yeah.
The envelope of this building isn't changing. We are simply increasing the density inside of the same envelope. And to be 2 years in the process to get the approval is ultimately insane.
Yes.
So for example, they're in this particular building, it was a 9-plex with 1 illegal unit. So I never counted on that illegal unit, but I figured with the way the government's talk and the way everyone's trying to get more housing, let's get that unit legalized. It's in the basement, and it had been used for like 30 years by the previous owner. We cannot use that space for housing because it is technically in a GRCA floodplain, and technically the person could drown.
Okay.
I kid you not. So we had to take a massive space and use it as bicycle storage instead of another much needed unit.
Right.
That is insane. That is crazy. So nonetheless, going through this process, that was a massive delay. We got through the site plan approval, we got the parking variances, we got the road widening allowance, we got everything that they wanted, all these plans and studies, and we are now into the building permit stage, and there is another delay because the units are increasing. they now require potentially another fire exit.
Right.
So they took 2 years to get the site plan approval, take you to the building permit stage. Now, in order to get that fire exit, we may need to go back and get another minor variance to allow for that exit.
Yeah.
It is asinine, it is crazy, and I'm not on my soapbox here, complaining, because ultimately at the end of this is going to be still a profitable project. It's still going to make a lot of sense from an investment standpoint. But if I got this done in a year, I could be out there building more housing, creating more units. So I'm spending my time dealing with this. We have 12 units in Kitchener-Waterloo sitting here vacant, waiting to get through these processes, these checks and balances. So
yeah, not to mention, the inefficiency of your capital use, right? If you could have already had these up and running, that's 9 families that could have been living in here happily in brand new inventory that's, up to today's building code and up to today's standards, and, taken what was, the shell of a great building and turned it into really usable, great living space for someone. You could have refinanced your capital back out by now at a much lower cost basis, right? So your capital would have been working more efficiently, allowing you to go and contribute that exact capital that was just lost, essentially to holding costs and inefficiency, back into this community. So I think that, we often do face criticism when it comes to being landlords and things like that, and rehabbing these buildings. But if we don't do it, who's going to do it? And I think the issue with this red tape is not the inconvenience to us, it's the inefficiency that it presents when it comes to the use of capital. That money should be out chasing other goods that are in disrepair and bringing them back up so that they're great, useful inventory. So it's really hard to have the discussion about, if we want to talk about affordable housing, these are all factors that contribute to what we can actually afford to do, right? And the impact that we can have in this community itself. Because I know that when this is done, this is going to be gorgeous, right? The design's going to be beautiful, it's going to be bright, it's going to be light, it's going to be efficient, it's going to have all those things that we want that, they do maximize our rent, but it's because they're valuable goods to the people that are spending on that product, right? That's the whole premise here, right? We're only getting what we put in. So it's really interesting to stand here, right, and hear about that level of red tape. And I'm proud of you for sticking it out. And obviously, like you mentioned, it is still going to be profitable. But I don't think that's not the point, right? The point was how long it took to get here and what else we could have achieved had it just been done in 1 year instead of 2. When it comes to the permitting process. So what are the next steps here? What can we look forward to on this building? Yeah,
so we are expected to get through the permitting process in the next couple weeks. We are site plan approved for 12 units now.
Oh, beautiful.
So we're able to increase the unit count even with the bicycle storage space as opposed to a unit. Ultimately, the way we do that in a building like this is to create a little bit smaller units than what was existing. But the key thing is in a building like this, it was failing.
Yep.
The building was not to today's fire codes, not to today's building codes, not to today's energy efficiency, and frankly, not to a standard person's comfort. There was mold, there was cockroaches, there was infestation, there was a less than desirable tenant profile, including narcotics dealers, those type of things. So we're taking a building that was failing anyways and was only a matter of time before it resulted in needing this anyways, and really moving it into today's standards of energy efficiency, accessibility, amenities, and these type of things that our communities really, really need.
Yeah, and I think that's the word. It's a need. This is not a luxury to come in and rehab this building. It's actually servicing a need, right? The 3 additional units, that's fantastic. But more so than that, right? It's who can live here. It's who's out here looking for nice inventory and what we actually provide as a product for them. And I think it's really honestly an important part of the discussion. It's not just we need more affordable housing. It's stuff that you can actually live in. Because if there's just more of it available and it looks like what this would have looked like when it was purchased, I don't think that's really servicing the average Canadian, right? And the average Canadian's not trying to sell drugs out of their apartment. They're not trying to live in disrepair with mold and cockroaches, right? The average Canadian, what they actually need is a beautiful space that they can call home that's safe, right? It's efficient. We have fire issues. Like, there's a reason we have a fire code and a building code, right? And today we are concerned about efficiency too. You want, once you live in this new space, to have it be efficient. You don't want to spend your life's earnings on hydro as those prices keep going up too. Like, you want this space to make sense for you and a space where you're proud to call it home. And that's what we're doing. So it behooves me to say we need this stuff. Like, we absolutely need it. And when we face the red tape like that, it hurts everybody. Yeah. So great. Well, thanks, Kyle, for bringing us in here. I think we're going to shoot another video with Kyle right now. So if you guys want more from Kyle, just stay tuned, because we have a lot to talk about when it comes to multifamily real estate investing and how you can actually make an asset like this make sense for you. Because at the end of the day, it's problems or profits. We are going to solve bigger problems in order to find those profits, but that's 2025. The inflationary environment that we are coming out of slowly has lent itself to being a place where you need to actually work for your money, if you can imagine that. Okay, so you have to be following best practices. You have to be listening to people like Kyle who have done this a bunch and can give you the tips and strategies that you need for you to be able to implement this yourself. So Kyle, we'll be right back.
Love it.